do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today is going to be the update to the burn build, the Magicka Dragonknight for the Wrathstone DLC. Now I don't get to the racial passives and all that kind of stuff until the passive section usually, but it's painfully obvious that this guy is a cat. So get that out of your system. Yes, I made a cat. As you know, if you watch my live streams, I don't actually like them, but the race changes made a big difference to their viability for mag build, let's call it that. Now, I'm going to go into the stats, of course, first of all, and we're going to show all the details for the skills and everything if you're not familiar with this, but this doesn't require trial loot. This is very specific to the build. It's the way it's always been, apart from obviously there are some options, but this doesn't require any trial loot whatsoever. So, first of all, I'm going to go into the stats. We pop a potion, make sure our food is on, which it is, perfect. Now, we are sitting on 44.9k max Magicka, almost 45k, which is awesome for a cat. High health would put you a little bit higher. We're on 20k health, which is massive. 11k max stamina, 1018 recovery, 53.6% crit chance, 2.5k spell damage, but that does go up to about 4k. And we're sitting on 14.7 and 9.6k resist. You can slot a resist buff if you want, or if you've got a warden in your group, you're covered. Now we have 64 points into max Magicka. We're using the Lavamunda Stone on purpose because we are covering for some altered traits and CP allocation changes. So, when you get to the CPs and the gear, this will make a lot more sense. We are stage 4 Vampire, and of course we're using max health, max magic food. Now this, I know people shout out about cheese and target skeletons. You're going to see the penetration in the combat metrics that I have on the target dummy, including breach. This is not cheese, this is how the build is set up. So, now I'm going to go into the skills in detail, of course, as I always do, but if you are not familiar, this will help you. If you are already familiar, there may be some tips and tricks here that you don't already know, but if you do skip, that is, of course, at your own risk, because if you do skip anything that I've already said, and you start asking about it in the comment section, those questions won't be answered. The video is here for you to have all the information already. Anyway, here we go. First of all, we are looking at Burning Embers. This is in the Ardent Flame skill line. It's the second ability you unlock. Starts off as Searing Strike, morph it to Burning Embers. Now what this does is this actually attaches a single target damage over time to the target and does damage over time over 10.5 seconds. Flame damage, I might add. Initial hit and a damage over time. But when it ends, or when you end it, yes, you can end it yourself, you heal for 75% of the total damage done. This includes crits and such as well. You can actually do crit damage and that will accumulate towards your actual heal. Now all you need to do is apply it to the target. Now every tick of damage that it does counts towards your heal you get when it runs out. However, if you reapply it, it counts as running out. So you can claim the heal. So if you're really, really low health and you just reapply it, you'll get a massive heal. It'll fill nearly all your bar. It's absolutely insane. So that is your survival button, and it's also your main damage over time. You've got to keep that on the target at all times. Next up is Engulfing Flames. Now this is in the Ardent Flame skill line as well. Starts off as Fiery Breath, morph it to Engulfing Flames. Now what this does is this actually breathes fire, which is awesome. Anything caught inside of that conal AoE effect will take damage over time. Of course, at the same time, this applies a bonus buff or debuff for you and your group. Any target affected by this will have all fire damage that is done to them increased by 10%. That's yours and your group. Now next up, this is not essential but it really, really helps. This is Structured Entropy. We don't actually use this for anything other than passives. Now this comes from the Mages Guild skill line. Some of you that have been using this build for a while might notice that the skills have changed and so has the rotation, but we'll get to that. Now, this is the second ability you unlock in the Mages Guild skill line. I think you need Mages Guild 3 or 4 for this. I don't remember exactly. It's not too much. And basically, just for being on your bar, you will increase your max health by 8%. So when I get to the Mages Guild passive, this will make a lot more sense. We actually get Magicka bonus and a recovery bonus as well. But this is not actively used. However, if you're not using spell pots, of course, you can actually apply this on the target, although your rotation will go down a little bit, and it will give you major sorcery, increasing your spell damage by 20% and giving you a heal or every so often as well. So, you can use it if you want to, but on the actual build itself, the way it's set out, it's not used as an active skill. It's used as a passive. Now again, this is in the Mages Guild skill line. Starts off as Entropy, morph it to Structured Entropy. Now, if you don't have Mages Guild and you want the Major Sorcery anyway, you can go into your Earth and Heart skill line, and you can unlock Molten Weapons and morph it to Molten Armaments. Now, you will not get the passive health bonus, you will not get the passive Mages Guild bonuses, which I'll get to later, but you will get 40 seconds of Major Sorcery for you, 20 seconds of Minor Brutality to your group because of the passives, but we'll get to those. And, of course, you will increase your own heavy attacks by 40%. Now, this has been changed. This actually affects 12 people now, not 6. So the spell damage bonus is actually for everyone. So you can buff their damage and buff their passive bonuses to their flat damage as well. But, again, that's a choice. You don't have to do that. For flat stats, I just keep Structured Entropy on the bar. That's it. Just put it there. Now, that will be more beneficial, kind of logic and sense-wise when I get to the passives. We'll get to those. Don't panic. Anyway, put that on your bar. Inner Light is next up. This is also in the Mages Guild skill line. This is the first ability to unlock. Starts off as Mage Light, morph it to Inner Light. For being on your bar, you will actually gain Major Prophecy, increasing your crit chance by 10%. I know it says 2192. They still haven't put that in a percentage, but that is 10%. And also, just for being on your bar, you will get 5% increased max Magicka, so your pool is larger. Now, the passives for major skills, I'm not going to go over just yet. This does apply to this skill as well, but these do both benefit us for both being on the bar based on the passives. We will get to them, don't worry. So these two skills, you don't activate them, unless, of course, you're not using potions and you want Major Sorcery, or you can swap it out. Next up is Flame Lash. This is in the Ardent Flame skill line. This is the first ability to unlock. You've got no excuse. You get it straight away. Starts off as Lava Whip. Morph it to Flame Lash. Now, the difference between the other morph and this one is that the other morph gives you a very small bonus to your spell and weapon damage of this particular skill line. So it does improve them slightly flat out. However, this has some bonuses to it. First of all, if an enemy is off balance, you will do a wicked backflip. The visual on the skill bar will change to 2 beady eyes, kind of like how the cat is looking now in the face. And you'll do more damage. It will cost half the cost, so your sustain is actually up. And you will heal over 2 seconds for doing so. And this can happen once every 3 seconds. Now, off balance lasts 5 seconds, most of the time. And then there's a 15-second immunity for the bosses or enemies that are affected by it. But if one target is off balance, you do some wicked whips, and then another target is off balance, you do some more. You can see where we're going with it. It's really, really easy to sustain it with half the cost, and you do more damage, and you heal off it. You can keep this going amongst multiple different enemies at once. Also, some enemies are not immune to off balance with a period of time. Some, instead of having 5 seconds up and 15 seconds down, can actually be off balance all the time, so you can get a lot more whips out of it. Now, in group content or trials or anything like that, this is actually really, really beneficial. For yourself, you might want to put on a light and stuff on the back bar if you want to do that, or failing that, you can actually proc this yourself. Now, how that works is if you apply immobilization and you hit them with this, this will push them off balance. So any trash mobs or anything like that that you're up against solo or in a group that happen to be immobilized, maybe they were talonsed up by a tank, or they were stunned, or they were caught in a beast trap, anything like that that you whip, you will actually proc this. So it's very, very helpful. It's not just good for when other people force off balance, but you can do it as well within certain situations. Sounds a little bit more complicated than it needs to be, but basically if something's immobilized, whip it, you'll get a cheap one. If something is off balance, whip it, you'll get a cheaper one. You'll hit harder, you'll get heals, all that good stuff. It's very, very nice. And I'll show you a demonstration at the end on the target skeleton where we do deliberately force off balance, so I can show you the benefits of it. And of course, it will increase the overall output that you can do. It's really, really strong. So get this morph, not the other one. Flat out, the other one was harder to sustain and didn't actually do that much extra damage along your full rotation. Plus, because you had to sustain harder, your damage actually went down because you were weaving in way too many heavy attacks to get your stuff back. This was really, really nice. Now, the ultimate on the front bar is not used. This is only here for stats. Again, like these two are for Mages Guild, this is only here for stats. This is in the Mages Guild skill line. You need Mages Guild 10 to unlock it. And we just put it there and never use it unless we haven't got enough ultimate to use our back bar ultimate, in which case we can pop this out just for resources, which I'll get to in the passives, or as an oh shit button if the enemy is almost dead and you can't afford the back bar one. But overall, we use the back bar ultimate all the time. Which morph you take is up to you. It's Meteor, morph to Ice Comet. You can morph it to the other one as well if you want, but it doesn't really make a difference. This is just here for stats. But like I said, if you don't have that ultimate, you can of course put on a really nice oh shit button, which is Magma Shell. Starts off as Magma Armor, morph it to Magma Shell, costs the same amount of ultimate just in case you're in trouble, and when activated, you give everyone around you a damage shield plus yourself for 100% of your max health. And you take 3% of your max health in damage per hit. It's really, really strong. So if you're leveling or you haven't got Major Skilled yet, put Magma Shell on your front bar. If you have got Major Skilled, use Ice Comet. Back bar. Right, we need a damage shield. Harness Magicka we're using. This is in the light armor skill line. You must have 5 pieces of light armor to activate this or use it. So make sure you've got 5 pieces. This is our safety button. Damage shield, coats our health bar. That takes damage before our health does. Really, really effective. And of course, it starts off as annulment, by the way. If you take damage from magic abilities, you will absorb the magic ability and actually get magic back. Of course, if the shield falls off, you can no longer take any more Magicka hits, but you can actually absorb up to 3 as long as your damage shield lasts. So if you're in trouble, pop this on, you're in business. This here, next up, is from the Destruction Staff skill line. This is Wall of Elements morphed into Elemental Blockade. Now, it is called something different on our bar because we are using a Fire Staff. It's called Blockade of Fire. Whatever element you're using changes the effect and name of this particular skill. Now, this puts an effect on the ground. Anything caught in front of this or in it will take damage over time. Once a second. It's really, really strong.
I love
and
these. Drinks all around.
It's really, really strong. And, of course, you do more damage to enemies that are burning. So if they proc a burning status effect, which is a chance damage over time effect from fire, they will actually take 20% more damage from this ability. And consider also, Engulf in Flames actually increases your flame damage by 10%. So this is stronger for having this active. So keep this down all the time. It's area of effect as well, so anything caught in this, not just one target, all the targets caught in it will take damage. Next up is Rearming Trap. This is in the Fighters Guild skill line. So you will need Fighters Guild for this. You need to kill quite far because it takes forever to unlock. Kill Daedra, Undead, all that good stuff. We're using Rearming Trap on the back bar. Now, we were using it on the front bar previously, but the rotation has changed for good reason. But the Rearming Trap is now on the back bar instead. And I'm using this on purpose instead of Race Against Time or the other morph of the Sigil Order one because we would struggle like hell to sustain it with this particular setup. If you're using recovery food, you might get away with it, but this is actually really, really beneficial for us because it costs stamina, and as a DK, it's very easy for us to get stamina back. So we can sustain this ability with the Minor Force much, much easier than the other ability. Now, how this works is it puts a trap down on the ground. Very simple. Anything caught inside of that will be immobilized. Why is that important? Because our whip... Let's show you the whip, by the way. We didn't even show you what it looks like. There's a whip. That, if you whip someone caught in this, your next one will be a backflip, half the price, give you a heal, and do more damage. So that's important for trash. But for bosses, if you put the trap on the ground and it pops, they will still take damage from it, although it's physical, so it won't be that much for us. But the Minor Force bonus that we get from it, the 10% increased critical damage, which we want because we want to crit and do more damage with it, will still apply. So although you can't immobilize a boss, you can still get this bonus from it. Also, once it's popped, after 6 seconds, the buff will obviously go away and so will the trap, but it will rearm and do another one automatically for you. So this actually lasts 12 seconds, not 6. Again, starts off as Trap Beast, morph it to Rearming Trap. Now, you want to keep that in your rotation at all times as well. Keep that down. Next up is Flames of Oblivion. This is in the Ardent Flame skill line. We've got a lot of these, actually. We've got 4 of the skills from the skill line. Now, this is the 5th ability you unlock. Starts off as Inferno, morph it to Flames of Oblivion. You can use this on Magicka or Stamina characters. It actually scales off of your max resources. Our highest resources are Magicka, obviously, so this scales off of that. Now, this will grant you Major Savagery and Major Prophecy for being on your bar. So on the front bar, we've got Major Prophecy. On the back bar, we've got it as well. Although Mage Light gives us Magicka increase, whereas this doesn't. But this basically lasts for 15 seconds, and every 5 seconds it fires a fireball at the target. So it stays with us, doesn't do anything. Even if we're near the target, it won't fire. Get up. As you can see, it won't fire at all. But if it's aggroed, it will. Every 5 seconds, it will do direct damage. Very, very strong. Keep that in your rotation at all times. It does take a little bit of time to unlock, but since you're using 3 of these on your front bar anyway, while you're gaining XP, you will unlock this quite quickly. Now, finally, apart from the ultimate, we are using Eruption. Now, this is in the Earthen Heart skill, and this takes forever to unlock. So you do want to put some of these on your bar while you're leveling. Especially Molten Armaments is a really good buff while you're leveling, and you can use it later on as well, like I said earlier. Eruption starts off as Ash Cloud. Morph it to Eruption, of course. And this is the damage morph of this, not the heal, because the other morph is actually a heal. Now, this will do flame damage, burst flame damage in area of effect when it lands, and then it will do damage over time. Now this is massive. This is the longest damage over time effect we have. It does damage every 1 second. It has a snare attached to it as well, so ads aren't going anywhere. And it lasts 18 seconds. You don't want to spam this. You want to use it once every 2 rotations. Otherwise, you are going to drain the crap out of your Magicka. This is a very effective damage over time ability. You want it down on the targets, along with your wall, inside the breath. And yes, because it's fire, that gets boosted as well. Everything that we're doing gets boosted by that breath, including the stuff on the ground. Now, the ultimate is very, very important. This is Standard of Might. This, again, surprise, surprise, in our Ardent Flame skill line. We're using pretty much all of these, apart from the chains. This is utility, by the way. You want Unrelenting Grip if you are designated to be a chainer. That not necessarily needs to be explained today. But if you do need to chain enemies in, maybe you're in more of a Lorcage or something like that, I would assume you understand what this skill does anyway. But this basically pulls targets to your feet, and if they can't be pulled, you get the magic back. That's for another time. But our main ultimate is Standard of Might. Starts off as Dragonknight Standard, morph it to Standard of Might, not the shifting standard. And when this lands on the ground, this will do flame damage in area of effect, which does get boosted by our breath. This will reduce the healing received and health recovery of the target by 30%. This will reduce the damage you take by 15%, and this will increase the damage you do by 15%. Also, there's a synergy attached to it, which another player can take and do loads of damage and shackle things to the actual banner that drops. Now, the trick to this is to get as much damage down as possible and then activate the banner. For 2 reasons. 1 is for resources, and 2 is for efficiency. If you drop this banner down with no skills down, the time starts ticking, your 17 seconds are dropping away really, really rapidly, and you've got no damage to actually increase. If you've got your damage down, the damage that is passively going, since we're doing a lot of damage over time, and they will just be ticking constantly, will start ticking over and doing more damage while we start reapplying the rest of our rotation. So, I don't have enough ultimate. I'm just going to show you what it looks like. This we do. Instead of dropping it on its own, get your dots down first, make sure you've got some damage on, and then drop it. Anything inside of here will do more damage, or will have more damage done to them, as long as they're in here, as long as you're in here as well. It's really, really nice. You have to make sure, of course, that your resources are not full when you do this. I will explain that in the passives coming up in a second. This is very, very important. Now, passives are coming up. So, first of all, Ardent Flame. Combustion. This is essential. Increases the damage of your burning and poison status effects. Now, burning and poison status effects both are single target damage over time abilities that happen by chance if you do poison or fire damage. Now this, for us, for the Dragonknight, any of those effects are increased by 50%. They are stronger. Not only that, when applying a burning status effect to your enemy, which we will be doing a lot of, once every 5 seconds you can gain back 500 Magicka. So this helps towards our sustain as well. This is essential. When you deal direct damage with an Ardent Flame ability, you reduce the enemy's movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds. We're not really bothered about the snare, to be fair, in PVE, because that generally should be controlled anyway by the tanks and such, and your eruption ability, but this is a viable passive to use, especially if something's trying to bolt. But it applies to our direct damage ability. So the initial hit for this, the initial hit for this, the whip, and of course the Flames of Oblivion. So pretty much everything we're using on its first hit will actually slow stuff down, if you want to do that. Increases the damage of your Fiery Breath, which is our breath that boosts our damage, Siren Strike, which is our Burning Embers, and our Dragonknight standard abilities by 3%, so they're all stronger, and their duration is increased. So these all last a longer duration, which they're set to now in comparison to their base, so that helps our rotation and of course increases our damage. Make sure you get this. This here increases the effectiveness, or damage output in fact, of our area of effect flame ability. So our banner, our eruption, our wall of elements, our flame breath are all area of effect fire. They're all increased by 6%. Also, our monster helmet is as well, but we'll get to that in a moment. Draconic Power, we're not actually using any of these. You can use the resist buff occasionally if you want to. You can probably just take off Flames of Oblivion or something, or maybe even slot it on your front bar and remove entropy. But if you do have this in your skill line, or your skill bar, sorry, you can increase your resistances by 5280. If you've got a warden in your group who is dishing out resist buffs, you don't need it because they don't stack. But this is situational. Depends on what you're up against. If you feel a little bit squishy, you can put this on. And this will do area effect damage over time as well when you activate it. So that's a choice, but essentially we're not using any of the Draconic Power abilities at the moment. So some of them aren't relevant. So this here increases the amount of damage you block. We will be blocking, you do want this one. While Draconic Power ability is active, your healing received is increased by 12%. So that is in the situation where you have maybe this on. That is when that's relevant. Until then, it's not. So you might not want to get this. Also, this one as well increases your health recovery by 5% for each ability slotted of that skill line. Again, we're not actually using any, unless of course you want to. But this one is still valid for us because this increases the range of your instant melee attacks by 2 meters. Now this actually is a melee ranged or melee based attack. So it's 7 meters, not 5. This increases your spell resistance by 3300. You want to get this? Let's take the spell resistance. Earth and Heart is essential. Increases your duration of your Earth and Heart abilities by 20%. So Eruption lasts 18 seconds. So there's your 20% bonus already. That would be less. Molten Armaments, if you do choose to use it, is 39.6 seconds instead of less. And of course, Magma Shell is 10.8 seconds instead of less as well. So these do benefit us. They're really, really handy. So you do want to get this passive just in case you use any of these abilities. Plus, you are using this anyway. Battle Roar, when you cast an ultimate ability, you restore 46 health, 46 magicka, and 46 stamina for each of the ultimates cost. That is why it's important that we, A, use this all the time, because it's the most expensive, we'll get the most back from it. And B, why you don't just throw an ultimate down while you've got full resources.
I love winnings. Drinks all around.
If you just chuck down a banner, and you're full magic right now, what was the point? Your skills aren't down, so it doesn't benefit from the damage output. And of course, you've just gained back 250 times 46 magicka on a full bar. There's no need. Make sure that you have burnt down some resources first. Actually have some magicka missing out of your bar, and then drop your ultimate, and it will fill it back up again. The way we sustain as a Dragon Knight, not only with our potions and heavy attacks and such if you need to, and combustion passive of course, is to use our ultimates effectively. Use them for the damage output and also use them for your resource gain.
I love winnings.
It's really,
Drinks
really handy.
all around.
Jack is busy today, man. my subs are popping up, and when they do, Captain Jack says hi. It's the stream software. Anyway, this is why this is important as well, because this is our oh shit button. So if we are in trouble, we don't have enough for the banner. The ultimate here is 200 cost. It is quite possibly miserable in comparison to the standard of might. But if the enemy's almost dead, pop it, why not? And of course, if you are running out of resources and you think you're going to die, again, pop it. But apart from those situations, always use the banner. Now, when you cast an Earth and Heart ability, you and your group gain minor brutality for 20 seconds, increasing your weapon damage for 10%. So you and other people get a weapon damage increase for 20 seconds. Now, of course, weapon damage doesn't really apply to us. It does boost our beast trap very slightly, but we're not based off of weapon damage. Other people may be though, so it's a buff for them. So just applying this actually gives minor brutality to you and your group. If you were using molten armaments, that would also apply. This is in our rotation every 2 rotations anyway, so we can have almost 100% uptime on that particular bonus to the group, which is very helpful. Not only that, if you use an ability from this skill line at least once every 6 seconds, for doing so you'll gain 3 ultimate. We do use this every 2nd rotation, so when we do actually activate it, we will gain ultimate guaranteed. And of course, finally, Helping Hands. When you cast an Earth and Heart ability, you restore 990 stamina. Why is that important? First of all, you will block, you will dodge roll, you will run around like a loon. We are using Beast Trap. And for using Earth and Heart abilities, we get stamina back. Look at that. We can sustain it. So when I said race against time, obviously you would nuke your magic bar and you'd run out of resources. Using Beast Trap isn't a problem for us, because we can recover from it. Very helpful passives indeed. Now, of course, Destruction Staff skill line. You can put Crush and Shock, by the way, on your front bar if you choose to, if you have to interrupt stuff. But just note, you will lose the passive from Structured Entropy for doing so. Your fully charged Flame Staff heavy attacks deal a 12% additional damage if you have this passive. Very important indeed. And, of course, you gain increased spell penetration to some extent based on your Destruction Staff ability. So your Wall of Elements, your Crush and Shock if you're using it, your light attacks, your heavy attacks actually ignore 10% of the target's resistances. Increases your chance to apply Burning, Concussion, and Chilled status effects by 100%. Remember, we get resources back from Burning status effect. We also do more damage with Burning status effects. As long as we're holding a Destruction Staff, you will increase your chance by an additional 100% based on whatever the base is. So the flat bonus to Concussion chance, or Burning chance, or Chilled chance, depending on what damage you're doing, is increased by 100%. It's not a 100% chance to do it. So this is very important. Also note that this requires a Destruction Staff to be present on your bar. You have to be holding one. So, for those healers and tanks out there trying to proc off balance off of a tank or a healer, and they're wondering why they can't while holding a sword and board, it's because you have to have a staff held. Equipped on a flame staff increases your damage done with single target abilities. So, light attacks, heavy attacks, Flames of Oblivion, your Burning Embers, they're all single target abilities. They will all benefit, and so is a Burning Status effect. That is also a single target ability. So, they all benefit. Now, we've got one more in there actually. When you kill an enemy with a Destruction Staff ability, you restore 3600 Magicka. So it's down to you to choose whether you want to finish something off with a heavy attack or finish it off with a whip. One will cost, one will give back. Light armor, we're of course getting all of these because we're using 5 pieces of light armor. Reduces the effectiveness of snares for each piece worn and reduces the cost of sprinting. This will increase the Magicka recovery for each piece worn and reduces the cost of abilities for each piece worn as well. This will increase your spell resistance by each piece worn up to 1.8k. You can get more from that obviously if you've got 7 pieces with these 3 bonuses, but we're using 5 on purpose. And for using 5 pieces, you must have 5 pieces equipped. So if your armor's broken, you're going to lose this shit, and you're going to lose your damage shield as well. So make sure you keep your repairs up. This will increase your spell crit rating by 10%, and this will increase your spell penetration by 4884. Targets in PVE have 18,200 resistance, physical and spell. So you want to get as close to that as possible with your own abilities, your own passives, your own traits and CPs, and of course your buffs and bonuses from your group. So that's what you're aiming for. This is a 4884 flat before you even go anywhere. Get this passive. We are using 1 piece of medium armor, so you can of course get this one here, which increases your recovery and reduction to cost. We are using 1 stam ability, so we want to get the cost down a little bit for the bonuses that we can take advantage of, so it makes sense to do this. And also athletics. This will actually increase your movement speed while sprinting, which is not that important, but reduces the cost of dodge roll, and we will be dodge rolling, so this does give us a small bonus here. Heavy armor, get all 3 of these, but not these because these require 5 pieces. These ones here will give us a small physical and spell resistance bonus. This will give us increased recovery, which isn't that important because we're a vampire anyway, but you will restore 108 Magicka and stamina if you take damage once every 4 seconds per piece worn. We've got 1 piece. The bonus is tiny, but it does benefit us regardless. It does stack with everything else, so get this. And of course, Juggernaut increases your max health by 2%. We are quite high in our health actually. We're doing really, really well with it, and this does contribute. Makes you less squishy. Now, Vampire. We are, of course, a stage 4 Vampire. I always am on my DPS characters and my tanks, in fact, as well. This will increase our stam recovery and our mag recovery across the board by 10% for being stage 2 or higher. Stam recovery benefits because we can dodge, block, and use Beast Trap. Mag recovery goes without saying. We need it so we can apply our damage. This, of course, Undeath is so strong. Reduce the amount of damage you can take by up to 33% based on your missing health. This is while you're under 50% health, by the way. So the lower you go, the less damage you take per hit, the more survival you've got, and the less likely you are to die. This is very, very strong. I know people are scared of fire. Don't be scared of fire. You're wielding it. Don't be scared of it. Just don't stand in stupid unnecessarily. Fighters Guild. We do need these passives a little bit here. This one, we are, of course, using Beast Trap. So we do want Intimidating Presence to reduce the cost. We are going to be using it every rotation. We want to get that down. This one isn't that important. We do have weapon damage. We do gain weapon damage because, of course, we're using Earth and Heart abilities. But if you want the 3% extra on the back bar, your Beast Trap will be slightly stronger, but that's not essential. But this one is. You generate 9 ultimate when you kill an undead, Daedra, or werewolf. You will be doing that a lot. The more ultimate you gain, the more often you can spam your ultimate, and the more damage output you have, and the better your resources are. Definitely get this one. Mage's Guild. This is where the passives make sense. Front bar, we are using 3 Mage's Guild abilities. Not 2 like most times, we're using 3. And for that, we gain increased max Magicka by 2% for each ability, and increased Magicka recovery by 2% for each ability. So we've got a 6% max magic and max recovery bonus for this front bar, the way it's set up. The rest of the passives are not that important, unless of course you're using the abilities, which I personally am not. But this one is very important. Undaunted, this is very, very important. You will be melee range. You will get a lot of synergies, and for every synergy you take, you will get 814 health back, 442 stamina back, and 1,796 Magicka back, excluding what the synergy actually does. Synergies aren't just there for tanks, so tell them to stop crying. Synergies are there for everybody. They have a beneficial effect for all of you. They do extra damage, they give resources back, they give damage shields, and you get resources in this passive. Not to mention in your CPs, as long as it's set up properly, you can actually gain ultimate for each one you pick up. This here increases your max health, stamina, and magicka by 2% for each type of armor worn. We're using 3 pieces, 1 heavy, 1 medium, 5 light, 6% massive bonus across the board. So we've got 6% max magic here, and another 6% just for having these mages guild on here. We've got a 12% increase to our max magicka. It's huge. And of course, if it wasn't already obvious, we are a Khajiit. We're a cat, because their passives got changed and now they're nuts. So this increases your health recovery by 100, your stam recovery, and your mag recovery by 85. So our recovery is not too bad. That does stack with passive bonuses, so very nice. Increases your max health, max magic, and max stam by 8 to 5, which is why our health is so high, why our magic isn't so bad, and our stamina is higher than it ever was before on a Khajiit as well. And one more final bonus, and this is why I chose it over the Dark Elf or the High Elf after lots and lots of testing, is this bonus here. Increases your critical damage and your critical healing by 10%. All crits that you do, which are heals, will be stronger. All crits that you do, which are damage, will be stronger. This actually outperformed versus a Dark Elf and High Elf on this particular build, regardless of their flat spell damage and max magic increase. This is absolutely insane. And for those of you that watch the live streams, you know I hate cats, so I didn't take this choice lightly. But it's really, really strong. Zos did a really good job with the racial passive changes. I really like it. Alchemy, of course, you don't need all of these, but you do need this. Medicinal use. There's a alchemy guide in the description explaining how to get alchemy up to max really, really fast, and you can just get rid of all these points, get medicinal use, and your crafted, or any potions in fact, will last 30% longer. Why is that important? Because we are using... No, we're not. I need to make some more. Just ran out. Actually, have I got them here? Spell power pots. There we go. I'll show you how to make them. I just used the last one showing you the buffs. So what you need is Larkin's Tears, you need Cornflower, you need Lady Smock, and you need Water Hyacinth. And what this will do is this will grant you Major Sorcery for 47.6 seconds with a 45-second cooldown. Major Prophecy, we've got on both bars anyway, but we'll take it just in case you change skills. And of course, grants you Major Intellect, increasing your recovery by 20% for 47.6 seconds as well. The cooldown's 45, the duration's 47. As long as you pop this every single time it's ready, don't wait to go low, use them all the time, actively, like a buff. You will have 100% uptime on all of these bonuses. It's very, very nice indeed. Now, to the gear. Don't be disappointed. In fact, you won't be. If you've used this before, you will not be disappointed. But you need some transmutation crystals. We are using a precise Burning Spellweave Inferno Staff. This is why we've used the Lover Stone. This is one of the reasons why we use the Lover Stone. The Lover Stone is now giving us 3.5k spell penetration, and physical in fact, instead of 2.7 plus RCPs. Before we were hitting roughly 3.5 anyway. Now we still are, but we're taking advantage of an increased crit chance. Why are we doing that? Because we have crit damage in our passives. So up the crit, increase the passive crit damage, and we're good to go. Now of course we were using the Thief before, but because we've managed to get the extra penetration from the stone, we can now drop those penetration bonuses in our champion points, which was 10 points, and we can now put them somewhere else. When I get to the CPs, you're going to really like what I've done with them, because this is why we've gone with these particular choices. Anyway, Burning Spell with Inferno Staff on the front bar. Yes, like before, you do not need a trial for this. Max magic, spell damage, spell crit, and when you deal with a flame damage ability, you deal damage with a flame damage ability, you have a 15% chance to apply a burning status effect to the enemy and increase your spell damage by 525 for 8 seconds. This effect can happen once every 12. So it's 8 seconds up, 4 seconds down. Now, versus Sororia, which you can choose to use if you want, also precise, also weapon and spell damage on there, and this will increase your spell damage up to around 600 spell damage overall, but it takes several ticks to get there and can fall off. In multiple tests, Burning Spell we've actually outperformed on short durated fights and ended up almost the same on long duration fights. The reason being is Sororia obviously hits slightly higher spell damage and has minor slayer, but it takes time to build it up. And when you do get it to maximum, if you're moving around inside mechanics, it will fall off. You'll have an average time of how many ticks you have rather than the full amount. So you'll probably hover around the 300 spell damage bonus most of the time. Whereas this one has only a 4-second gap and it will constantly give you 525. So you do average out very, very similar, but in stack and burn situations where you never, ever, ever move, Sororia might be slightly higher. But in situations where you were inside mechanics, this actually procced very, very nicely. When it counted as well, because I've deliberately put it on the front bar to take advantage of my whips and all that kind of stuff, this actually did work out a little bit stronger in more situations than this. Plus, of course, because this lands instantly with 525 and doesn't have to be wound up, instant burst damage. It's very, very nice. So, bonus Spellweave Staff and 3 Jewelry. 1 Bloodthirsty, 2 Arcane. Now, just don't panic, by the way. You don't have to have the Jewelry. You can have 3 body pieces instead if you prefer. As long as you've got 5 pieces on the front bar. The back bar is the Maelstrom Inferno Staff with a Flame Damage Glyph and Infused. Now this will increase the damage you do with your lights and heavy attacks, which are high inside Wall of Elements. So any enemies affected by this, your lights and heavies will do more damage. You've got to keep this up all the time. It's very, very important. If you don't have the Maelstrom Inferno Staff, don't use 2 Burning Spellweaves because this will proc on the back bar when you don't want it to. Put yourself a Willpower Staff on the back, a Flame Staff Infused will be just fine. Failing that, craft yourself something simple that has spell bonuses. So maybe a 2-piece bonus from Turok's Pact. So just a Turok's Pact Flame Staff or something to that effect. And you'll be just fine for the time being. Now, if you are struggling with sustain, of course, you can use Witch Mother's Food if you prefer. Your health will go down, your magic will go down, but your recovery will go up. Your damage output will be altered, though. It will go down a little bit, but your recovery will be up. Also, if you're still struggling, or if you prefer, instead of having a flame damage glyph on the back, you can actually put a Magicka damage absorb glyph on the back, so you actually get recovery for fire in this. Just note, by the way, your Wall of Elements will, whoops, wrong button, will fire off that glyph every 2 or 3 seconds because it's infused. Even if you're on the front bar, it will still fire because this is an area of effect weapon ability. That's very important to note, that weapon abilities proc your glyphs. So, Maelstrom Staff, Willpower or crafted, up to you. Grofdar, of course, is still on the set. We are definitely still taking advantage of this. It's very, very strong. There are 2 options here. In area of effect situations, Grofdar all day long. It gives you increased max Magicka, which of course increases your overall damage, and it has a chance to create lava pools which do 2.5k damage in area of effect for 5 seconds up and 5 seconds down. And yes, your Flame Breath does boost it because it's flame damage, and your Ardent Flame abilities will buff it because it's area of effect. Now, there's the Flame Circle. There's damage every second. It gets stronger with the breath. Now, if you don't like Grofdar, oh, by the way, 1 heavy, 1 medium in any order. So Divine's on the small piece and Infused on the large. If you don't have this, or you don't preference it, or you want more single target, Xan doesn't necessarily do more single target. I've got same results out of both of these, but you can, of course, use Xan. This has a spell crit bonus, and just for doing light or heavy attacks, you have a 20% chance to create a beam of fire on the target. Now, this is absolutely nuts, really, really fun. But it's got a pretty long cooldown. Let me see if we can get it to fire. Come on. There we go. There's the beam. It does get stronger with the Burning Breath, or the Engulfing Flames either. I don't know why I keep calling it Burning Breath. It does get stronger with that, and it does more damage every second by 50% of the previous tick. So every 1 second for 5 seconds, it will progressively get stronger, and it stacks with your abilities. So your 2 choices there are Xan or Grofdar. Ease of use and easy to obtain. Burning Spellweave is in City of Ash, quite easy to pick up, although RNG needs to be on your side. And Grofdar, of course, that comes from Vaults of Madness, which is also pretty easy as far as dungeons are concerned. Xan is a little bit tougher, so that may be something to kind of strive for if you're quite new, but start off with Grofdar if you want. The choice is yours, it's up to you. But you can use either of them. They both gain very, very similar results, but of course Grofdar is more area of effect. The next set, of course, is the same as before. We are using Destruction Mastery. Now, what this does is gives us a max magic bonus, a spell crit chance, and spell damage. Very much the same as the Burning Spellweave. So, Magicka, spell damage, and crit. Magicka, spell damage, and crit. Exactly the same. But the 5-piece bonus. While you have a Destruction Staff equipped, which we do on both bars, your Magicka is increased by 2.4k. Your max pull is increased by 2.4k. Now, that is actually higher than that. Because when Wrathstone landed, CPs were changed. 300 CPs and above, you will gain 20% increased resources for all 3 pools. So that's why you'll notice that our max mag, stam, and health is higher this patch. You'll also notice that not only was that affected, our flat stats, but food was affected as well. So our food that we activate once it's on is increased on flat resources by 20%, and so are any 5-piece bonuses that give it increased max stam, max health, max magic. Any of those. This does give us a flat bonus as a 5-piece bonus. This is flat stat, and this is stronger than 2.4k. which is why our max magic is so high, even though we are not a high elf. If you're a high elf with this setup, you'll get about 46.6k max magicka. On the Khajiit, you get 44.9. When a Warhorn pops with either one of the two, you'll crack 50k all day long. It's really, really strong. This is all flat, and this just contributes to everything you do. So, to recap, bonus spell whip on the front bar, increased weapon and spell damage, Maelstrom, willpower, or Turok's pack on the back bar with an infused trait with a flame damage glyph or Magicka Absorb, whichever you prefer, Grofdar or Zahn on the helmet and shoulders, and of course Destruction Mastery on the body. Now again, Destruction Mastery or bonus spell weave can be on the body or jewelry in any order as long as bonus spell weave is on the front. It has to be on the front. You don't want to activate this on the back bar. You want to activate it on the front, take advantage of it, swap, let the cooldown kick in, and then go again. Trait-wise, infused on the head, chest, and legs, divines on everything else, and then bloodthirsty, arcane on the jewelry. Now, the rotation is basically we spend longer on the front bar this time because we don't need a Destro skill on our bar, so we don't have to mess around with all that confusion. So what I've done is I've swapped over the Flame Breath, obviously, from the back to the front, and the Beast Trap has gone from the front to the back, and so on and so forth, leaving us more of a front bar rotation. The back bar is just for cooldowns and reapplying dots. Now, all you need to do, make sure a Beast Trap is down and Flames of Oblivion is on when you start. That's it. Then you'll want your Eruption and Wall of Elements down on the ground. Make sure they're down first. Eruption lasts 2 rotations, Wall of Elements lasts 1. Just remember that. So Beast Trap is down, Flames of Oblivion is up. Eruption, light attack, Wall of Elements, swap. So you want your Flames of Oblivion on, you want your Beast Trap down, and you should start with Eruption, light attack, Wall of Elements. If you're sneaky, however, on the run-up to the fight, you can do a sneaky breath and then start your rotation, because then that way you kick this in with a bit of a boost. But regardless, your front bar rotation from then onwards is light attack, Burning Embers, and then you want light attack, 5 whips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Light attack, breath, swap. Now, do we start exactly the same as we left off? No, we do not. So front bar is light attack, Burning Embers, light attack, 5 whips, light attack, breath, swap. Back bar is not Eruption this time. Remember, it lasts 18 seconds. So you don't want to recast it. It's still going. So instead, we use Flames of Oblivion, light Beast, light Wall, swap. Repeat the previous one. Light Burning Embers, light 5 whips, light breath, swap. This time, Eruption, light Beast Trap, light Wall, swap. See what I did there? Every rotation is Eruption, Beast Trap, Wall of Elements, swap bars. Next time, Flames of Oblivion, Beast Trap, Wall of Elements, swap bars. Next time again, Eruption, Beast Trap, Wall of Elements, swap bars. You see what I'm doing? Every single rotation. One rotation is Eruption, the next rotation is Flames of Oblivion. Now, do not panic. If that is too complicated, all you need to do is take off Flames of Oblivion, replace it with Inner Light, and every single second rotation apply this. Every single other second rotation, don't do anything. Just Beast Trap, Wall, swap. That, by the way, can sometimes get you an extra sneaky whip in, but be careful with it. Now, I'm going to show you what that briefly looks like. You're not going to see any shiny damage numbers out of this, because obviously we're not buffed or debuffed or anything like that. But, I'm going to put the usual stuff down. It should look like this. Eruption, light Wall, Burning Embers, 5 whips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Light Breath, swap. Light Flames, light Beast Traps, light Wall, swap. Light Embers, 5 whips. 2, 3, 4, 5. Light Breath, swap. Eruption, light Beast, light Wall, light Embers, 5 whips again. Now, 2 things to consider. If you're struggling with your resources, instead of 5 whips, do 2 light whips and 1 heavy. And that should help you. If you notice the breath is wearing off a little bit too early, maybe you were slow on your rotation, you can interrupt it with a slight change. So instead of doing 5 whips in the row, but the breath is going to wear off before the 5th one is down, you can, of course, simply just do 4 whips. 1, 2, 3, 4, put the breath in, and then finish off the 5th. Keep an eye on your timers and your buffs and stuff, and you should be just fine. It depends on the situation, of course. You might be inside mechanics, you might just be slow, you might be having lag issues like we are on the PTS. At the moment, I think you can see the bottom left-hand side of the screen. I'm sitting on 190 ping. It's disgusting. It shouldn't be that bad, but at the moment, obviously, it's got some issues. But there are places where you can change stuff. So if you notice a breath wearing off, apply it. If you notice that you're going to die, reapply Burning Embers so you'll get the heal, all that good stuff. Now, the off-balance whip, I'm just going to briefly demonstrate that. Looks like this. I'm going to show you what to look out for. Every second rotation, you can get this if off-balance is applied properly by your group. So keep an eye out for this. Look at the whip. It's a completely different symbol. Every 3 seconds, you can apply a different whip for 5 seconds of off balance. So that's where you want to make sure that you got your rotation just right, because you can do one whip at the front and one whip at the end of the front bar rotation. However, if the enemy is not immune to anything, or you've got multiple adds and they're all stacking up inside Immobilize and you start whipping them, you can do it a lot more often. So let's see if I can apply that again. Come on, don't let me down. Stubborn skeleton. Do it, do it, do it. There we go. There's your whip, and there's your normal ones. And there's a whip again. You see, 2 in a whole front bar rotation. If you can time that right, your sustain will go through the roof, so will your damage, and so will your survival. Now, we are going to demonstrate, of course, a skeleton rotation, full out, just showing its potential, with Burning Spell Weave, with Zarn, with Destruction Mastery, and we're going to have off-balance applied. Just bear in mind, of course, about 51% of the time, Minor Vulnerability was applied as well. So without it, you're looking at about 45k DPS to maybe 49. With it, you're anywhere between kind of 51 to 55. It varies. But first of all, we're going to go into the champion points, and then I'm going to show you that demonstration. Now, we're using the same stuff as before. I have a very standard kind of setup for the red tree. Depends on content, you might want to change these. 72 points into Ironclad to reduce the amount of direct damage that we take. 64 and 64 for all other damage to be reduced by 13%. And 51 in Fixed Skin for dot damage reduction. Now, of course, Unchained, you will break free occasionally. If you do break free, your next stamina ability cost is less. So if this happens, throw in a Sneaky Beast Trap. 19 points in a quick recovery so that we get our increase to healing received. That's heals that we do or other people. And of course you get field physician, meaning that if you are resurrecting someone, you take less damage. Pop on a damage shield, pick them up. 44 points into Warlord to reduce the cost of break free. We don't want to waste all our stamina. Tenacity, of course, if you do heavy attack, you will increase the amount that you gain back from the heavy attack by 14%. And of course, 75 into Arcanist. So you actually have 14% increased recovery as well, which is why our recovery is so high alongside our Vampire and our Potion and all that good stuff. 76 into Tumbling, you technically only need 72 in here to get to 23%, but I've got 4 points spare. I'm not using them anywhere, so I might as well take advantage of the Treasure Hunter passive, which is nice. Elfborn, we've got 20% in here, which is 56 points. We've got 64 points into Elemental Expert, increasing our Flame, Frost, Shock, and Magic damage that we do. And this is where the Loverstone comes in important to us. Before, we'd have a few points in here, maybe 10 points in here, and we'd be 10 points short somewhere else. So our sharpened weapon previously being 2.7k plus another 1k roughly from here was put us around 3,700. We're now on 3,500, but we don't need the points in spell erosion because of that. Instead of using the Thief Stone, we're using Precise, so we're still up on our crit chance, but now we can take advantage of 10 more points, which in here, 56 points into Master at Arms and 19 into Staff Expert is 75 points. So not only is our direct damage up, our light attacks and heavies are up, but we get the Butcher passive as well. Now, we have used this in the past, but at the same time, you can't have the Thaumaturge passive, or the off-balance Exploiter passive, rather. But now we can. 75 points to Thaumaturge, increasing all of our damage over time, and we've got increased damage to off-balance enemies. So we've got both 75-point passives in both trees for the sake of changing our Mundus Stone and weapon trait to balance out our penetration bonuses and our flat damage, crit chance, crit damage increase, and our execute and all that good stuff as well. So just to recap over those, if a target's off balance, you do 10% more damage. And of course, if you have the Butcher passive, you increase your lights and heavies by 5% while the enemy is low. So we have an execute as well, almost. So, wasn't just thrown on for no reason. Everything was balanced and calculated on purpose. Surprise. Now, I'm going to show you the quick target dummy demonstration. And, well, you can see for yourself. Enjoy. So hopefully that helped, hopefully that wasn't too boring, hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to approach this particular build, hopefully the class demonstration or explanation wasn't too confusing as far as skills and that are concerned. If you're new to the DK, it is tricky, but you just have to understand your passives and you should be just fine. Also, hopefully people are happy that there's no trial loot requirements. Anyway, first of all, thank you all very, very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support, and if you are not subscribing already, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside of the channel, there are some links in the description for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website XynodeGaming.com. Once again, thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.